Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I want to introduce to you the Zerro 3. This is a frame that I had a few ideas and I tinkered around in the CAD design programs and I got frustrated. Then I started looking for some help with someone who was good at the CAD designing and the math required therein. And I found a frame on Armattan's website and I thought it was interesting, and so I reached out to the designer to ask if we could collaborate. And I'm very pleased. The designer's name is Nikita Armattan. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Nikita, I'm sorry if I did not. He also goes by a FPV name of DeadLoop, and I'll link his Armattan design page and his FPV site on YouTube down below. And this is, I think you would call this a slammed 3-inch. I'm not really sure. I hear that term used a lot, and it's normally in stretch X's where everything is squashed down. And really the only design features I wanted, I wanted a 3-inch quad, and I wanted to get the profile down. So the Q Carbon has a really nice low profile, and it uses the Piko Blx from Furious FPV. Problem being, it can only handle a really small camera. And here's a little side-by-side view. Hopefully I'm getting these both level, so you can see the profile differences. It's actually surprisingly minor. The standoffs that are in here are 25 millimeters, and then we can get another view here of something much more substantial. I really enjoy this quad. It flies great, but it's kind of got the head mounted up here, the pod or the shell, whatever we're calling these things. And I find that when I crash, I tend to have to disassemble the whole thing in order to get to the crashed part, or the part that is released and caused the pod to come loose or wiggle. And it's usually here in the front because forward flight, and it's usually one of the screws or the nylon down low. And so repair is a bit of a pain. Still enjoy it, but repair is a bit of a pain. And I also, you've got this, here, let me move this down, got that antenna down there. So we can minimize some of those pains of repairs and crashes by using our motors as a little bit of a bumper for our camera. So as you can see, we've got plenty of clearance, and I left the props on, but they're not tightened down. And let's see if we can get in there very close where you can see that. You can see there's plenty of clearance here with the camera, and we have pretty small clearance right back here between the standoff. And then when you go from the prop sides, there's plenty of gap over there. Let's take the props off so we can take a little bit of a finer look at this. With the props off, we get a little bit of a finer look of how things are laid out. And we can see that we've got 2 carbon plates on each side of the camera for mounting, and the screw holes for the big one. These other holes may come in handy for different size cameras, or if you wanted to shift the camera forward or back or left or right, depending upon your camera itself. We also have a cable or a battery strap right here, although it really doesn't need to be cut down here because we can't get the battery strap to really do any good for us right here, because we've got to have something supporting our board, unless you're using foam tape. But even still, you got to have something right in here. So I think that's one thing that could be done. I don't know if it's necessary for crash resistance or not, but if that were to just come to here, but that impacts the size of battery strap that we can get in there. So here's a Furious rubberized strap, and it's going to fit down in there. Can we thread it through there? Nope, I need to go the other way to make use of it really, but and you may want to jump around in this. This is really to help me understand the design and to maybe illustrate anything that we might want to look at changing. So maybe the battery strap will need to go in first, because with that Spectrum connector right there, it does look like this battery strap will work, but we'll get into that more on the build video. I think that'll be fine. And then of course anything that's smaller like these Taros, I've also cut down straps to make them work as well. So I think that will be okay. It was also suggested that we maybe have a JST connector or some sort of ability to strap down our battery wires or leads. And I'm a little bit worried if we do anything back here that's going to weaken the rear part of the standoffs. So if we do have a crash that impacts, because you know we'll be flying like this a lot, and if we have a crash that hits up here, that especially if we catch our SMA, that it may end up tearing off the standoffs off the bottom plate. So I don't know if that's really necessary yet or not, but time will tell. You can see also from the bottom we have motor protection out here. I don't know how effective that's going to be at the location it's currently at. I'm kind of wondering, because when we fly, we'll oftentimes catch an arm, not necessarily fly directly into something that's perfectly flat. So this would protect us if we hit something moving in that direction or this direction. But if we hit into anything that's, say, a tree limb that's round, and it comes in here, we're going to get direct motor impact because we don't have anything here. So we might need to build that out just a touch. Maybe relocate a point like this to keep some of the design interest. Here, kind of off in this corner and off in this corner, I think would probably be more practical. So it would come out like this possibly. I don't know if we could have a loop in there or if it'd have to be solid fiber. But I think coming off in those corners to where it's a little bit forward and a little bit off to the side might help protect the motors from taking a direct impact. You can see that we've got a large cutout for the camera, and if you look, which way can I show that? The camera actually goes down into that recess a little bit, and that allows us to get the profile down at 25 millimeters. It also allows for some dramatic camera up tilt. You can go way up. You can do, if you're familiar with Matty Stunts, his videos are mind-bending, but apparently he's got like 70% up tilt on his camera. I don't even know if I would fly with this much up tilt. I really don't know. But this is just kind of where I put the camera, and I did some tests with the motor clearance to make sure we had plenty of clearance for the lens. I believe this is cut out just for weight loss. And then, of course, we've got our motor holes. I'm a little bit concerned that this area right in here is so thin, but that's the camera plates, and the camera plates really aren't providing any structural integrity. So if we take a hard impact from the side, the structural integrity is going to come from the posts, and not necessarily, not these center four, but these outside four. So I'm concerned about it, but I'm not saying, oh, that's an area of weakness, we have to fix that. I'm just saying, it's pretty thin there, and that might be an issue. It might not. We've got to build this and fly it, right? The top plate is an area that I'm just not sure what we can do with. Most of this is either for airflow or weight loss or lack of air resistance to get air through for something like your VTX or something like that. And you can see we've got an SMA holder right here. But I'm wondering if we don't relocate these slots to where they run this way, if we can do that without weakening this terribly, that might allow for a small camera mount. I don't have a GoPro session. I don't know how big they are, but I would think they would be, something like this size, that possibly we can get a session mount. But if these current holes would work for something like an 808. If you put an 808 on there, you can get some sort of zip tie or something through those holes. Of course, if you can mount it flat and then modify the camera angle of the 808 to match your FPV camera angle, that will help keep the profile down. But you can see that pretty much fits. So you'd still have room for your antenna as well as not interfere with your FPV camera. And there might be other small HD cameras on the market. The Session is just, one I was thinking of that people probably, a number of FPVers are going to have. I don't, but they might. Let's measure. So if you've got some suggestions for the top plate, or really anything that you've seen here with the frame itself, leave those down in the comments down below. I'd sure like to hear. I don't claim to be an expert in design or in carbon fiber, so this was just an idea I had for a frame. And if you follow my channel, you know that I like micros because I like to just go fly in the backyard. But let's get some measurements of what this is. Oh, I've got low battery on my calipers, so bear with me here. So we're zeroed. Let's make sure we're zeroed. Get a measurement here on the arms. So we've pretty much got 3 millimeter arms. And our top plate. 2 millimeter top plate. Our arm thickness. 12.5. Let's go for our dimensions and make sure we're zeroed. This should be a true X, so it should be the same from motor post to motor post all the way around. Let's see if I can get this. So 92.31. Of course, there's some margin of error there for me. That's pretty close if I just move it. It's really close, if not exact. So it is a true X. Now let's check from diagonally so we get our dimensions. It should be a 130, and as it's mounted, I would say that's 130. And inside here, see if we can get the clearance from here to here. Should be 25 millimeters, and it is. Clearance between the posts. I don't know if I'm going to be able to even measure that. Yeah, my motors are getting in the way. Well, let's say this is a close approximation. Now that's at an angle. That's, jeez. Let's see, can I come at it down this way? Well, this is a rough approximation, I would say. It's probably 10 millimeters because I've got this tilted here at an angle. Distance here for the battery strap, we're looking at 30 millimeters. Distance of the battery strap, let's flip it over and use the back side of my calipers. Total distance about 17 millimeters. Oh, I didn't measure the camera plate. See if I can get a bite on that. No, okay, let's loosen up this camera a bit. There we go, that should be pretty good. It's 2 millimeters there as well. And of course, Armattan has great carbon fiber quality stuff. Looks good, the milling looks good, sharp tools. If you are interested in this, I'll leave a link below and you can build it out, but know that it doesn't come with any hardware. It's just a carbon fiber kit, so you're going to need to source your own standoffs, your own screws, your own nylon bolts and spacers and things of that nature. Let's do one other thing just to be thorough. Somebody says, oh, you put the props on backwards. I'm not flying. Just doing some approximations here. This is probably about as close as the camera can get. So we've got plenty of clearance there. And if you angle it up much more, you're really not even going to get much prop in your view when you're FPVing. If we have a view like that, I don't know if you'll get any prop in there. It depends on your field of view, of course. If you're using a really wide angle, you'll get more. Something else we need to check out, I don't think we looked at, this is a Little B, and as I said a few videos ago, I'm going to start exploring these different ESCs, and this is BL Heli S, which many rave about. So you can get the dimensions from the product page of these. So you can see let me see if I can get that's always the tough thing about micros, is showing this stuff. My big old fingers get in the way. You know, probably going to have to loop over the top of the ESC because we want to keep those solder pads out away from the moving bell. But we have space there. It's really not going to be an issue. I've seen it tighter elsewhere. Let's check a front arm as well, which the front arm, the thing we have to work around with the front arm is the camera mounting system. So we're probably going to have to loop ESC wires. Or probably, I don't think we have enough space to go between the standoff and the camera mounting carbon fiber, so we're going to have to loop around. So that's going to be a little bit messy, but we've got to make choices somewhere. And going underneath, well, it might not be a terrible idea because you could go right through that gap if you had much camera angle, but if you don't have much camera angle, you know, if you're flying with 15 degrees or less, especially on this side where you're going to have your camera plugs, unless you've got a camera with top mounting plugs, we won't have much space. So I do think we're going to have to, let me use a pointer, come down with our ESC and then loop around here with our ESC wires and probably come underneath the board and then up and around the top to solder on to the board itself. And then of course we've got all of our signal wires over here. It's a Piko Blx. And while we got the camera loose, you can see that the camera angle goes up as far as your standoffs will allow. And you can see right down in here how the camera goes up and then hits my particular setup. That's pretty extreme. We might be able to get a couple more degrees if we were to take a Dremel or something and shave these down. But even as it is, that's a lot of up tilt. I'm not going to fly that way. I don't know about you. But we have that possibility, I guess, if you want to fly with extreme camera tilt. I'm a little bit concerned I might have these plates in wrong. See how it's flush up here? The little bits that go into the top plate are flush from the camera mounting, but in the bottom, they're a mil or two down. So I'm a little bit concerned that that might not be quite as sturdy as we might like. Let's get the scale out and we'll weigh up some parts. This will be a pretty rough sample of what the actual weight will be, but it'll give us an approximation of what we should expect. Okay, so there's our quad, but let's add the ESCs. And here's a scavenged Hawkeye VTX I was planning to use. Let's see if I can get this to cooperate. Get everything to stay on there. That's falling off. Gonna have to adjust. Fox ear mini antenna. And just for good measure, we'll throw on a JST battery lead. I might use an XT60 on this. So 158.1 approximation. Of course, we're not going to have, I'm going to direct solder all the signal and ground leads, so that will be some weight cutting. The wire length that we have for our ESCs might be shorter. So I suspect our weight actually might come in, unless I'm missing something, slightly less than what we're seeing right now. So let's compare that to the other two. Well, it all came off nicely. Of course, this is a fully assembled carbon Q. And it's nice and light, 129.7. I have a build video of this. If you want to see that, I'll put a card right up here. And then we've got the GB 130, 190.1. I also have a build video of this, and I'll put a card to that right up there if you're interested and you haven't seen those. Our new frame is going to come somewhere in the middle with all these parts. Okay, if you have any comments or suggestions, you have things that you see in the frame that might be flawed, or if ideas of things that we might be able to tweak to make it better, or make slight improvements or modifications, please let me know. I'm interested in hearing all your comments. If you know a frame designer and you want to pass this on to them and say, hey, look at this frame, you know, what do you think? And they can, I'm welcome to feedback. So this frame is available for purchase, and you can go out and grab one right now. There may have been others sold. I don't know. I don't have access to that side of the web shop. I don't get anything from that, and I never intended to get anything from the sales of this frame. All the money goes to Armattan and to Nikita. They did all the heavy lifting. I just had a couple ideas. I think at $27.50 for an Armattan produced frame, that's a pretty reasonable price. I know that there are other 3-inch frames out there that go for well more than that, at the very least a few more dollars than that. So this might be a frame you want to investigate, and I'm going to get started on the build, and so you will be seeing that in the coming days. Thanks for watching.